Hey, it's Irreverent Aegis here, and in this video I'm going to walk you through how to tank Moongrave Fane Hard Mode. In my opinion, Moongrave Fane Hard Mode is one of the top 3 most challenging hard modes for 4-man content. There's a lot going on, everybody has to be on point, so hopefully this video clears up a lot of stuff for you. First, let's talk about Grundwolf himself and what you need to look out for. He does the Dragon Shout, the Fusro Da. That is going to be a one-shot for everybody in your group who isn't you, as the tank. And it's also going to put 3 circles on the ground. 2 of those circles are going to spawn those homunculi, which have shields around them, which we'll talk about a little bit later. It's your job to make sure that you taunt those homunculi as soon as they come out, so they don't start nipping away at the rest of your team. Other than that, Grundwolf has a slow heavy attack, a fast heavy attack, and every once in a while when he hits you, he puts a dot on you that hits you for a lot of damage. I like to use my Necro Tank in here because I have easy access to a self-purge. Wardens have that same thing when they can summon their Netch. Other tanks are going to probably have to slot the Purge skill or rely on their healer, which is unfortunate because the Purge skill itself requires a lot of resources. Next up, we're going to talk about the box mechanic. This occurs when Grundwolf's health is at 85%, 70%, and then every 10% thereafter. What he does is he hides behind the box. That prevents the dragon from breathing fire on him, which interrupts him. Someone, and by someone I mean you as the tank, should hit the box out of the way, mostly because everyone else is occupied doing their jobs. When the box is hit, you're going to get a white health bar. This is a heal check, and you cannot heal yourself out of it. Another player or players have to heal you out of it. If the box isn't hit out of the way, Grundwolf is going to do an AoE that's likely going to wipe the entire group. And of course, this wouldn't be ESO without crazy glitches that happen for no reason. Sometimes the box is glitched. We call it the sky box because it's located in the sky rather than on the ground, and you'll need to look up at the sky and range it down in order to knock it out of the way. It's very annoying, and it makes it a lot harder than it needs to be. So here you can see I knocked the box out of the way, a couple others healed me, and Grundwolf was interrupted. The next mechanic that we're going to talk about is the Bat, the Ball, and the Horver. A bat with a blood shield is going to spawn every 40 to 50 seconds or so. The timing varies because it's not going to come out during another mechanic that I call the Tether mechanic. The bat's going to target somebody, and that person is going to get a circle around their feet indicating they should be kiting the bat, because if the bat touches them, they instantly die. The tank is not going to be targeted with the bat unless everyone else is dead or taunt is lost. To kill the bat, the Hemohealet needs to be heavy attacked in the direction of the bat. The Hemohealet is the blood ball that can be summoned at the yellow circle by hitting the synergy. When this is heavy attacked, it's going to break the damage shield of not only the bat, so that the bat can be killed with a couple light attacks, but any of the homunculi that still have shields. Every time the Hemohealet is hit with the heavy attack, a Horver is going to spawn at its location. And the Horver puts the heal check on anybody who it touches, and another player is going to need to heal that player out of it. So killing that Horver is a big priority. The best way to deal with all the adds, because there's going to be a lot of them, and the Horver, is for all players to save their ultimates for right after the Hemohealet is hit. The tank should then drag everything over to the Horver, and everything should be nuked immediately. It's also helpful if somebody has a crowd control to crowd control that Horver so it can't move and touch anybody. Immediately after the Horver is killed, a DPS, which you should designate as the summoner of the Hemohealet, should resummon the Healet so it is available for the next bat phase. Whenever it's summoned, the summoner will also get the white health bar heal check, so they'll need to be healed out of it by somebody else every time it is summoned. So here we can see the bat phase in action. There's the bat. And you can see the ball has already been summoned, and I'm going to go over, normally I don't, but I'm going to go over and heavy attack it because other people were occupied. The Horver came out, you can see it's been crowd controlled with that fear, and it is being nuked down. We have a Colossus drop down the area to kill any adds that are in the area. The next thing I want to talk about is the tether mechanic that you can see. Someone is being tethered right now. There's a spike on the ground that the tether originates from. When somebody has the tether, they should go run over to that spike and stand in the little green circle around it. When the spike is up, it is going to summon little adds called coagulants that are annoying, and they should be crowd controlled or taunted, because if you get a lot of them, it gets fairly annoying. And of course here we have another bat phase, so on point we had already summoned the ball, and we're all nuking that Horver and everything else in the area. The next mechanic happens at 70%. This is when we get a Dire Maw, but be careful because also at 70% we get the second box mechanic. So as the tank, the top priority is taunting the Dire Maw, and then after it's taunted, finding the box and hitting the box out of the way. If you can do those two things while avoiding the heavy attacks of the Dire Maw, it should go pretty smoothly. Of course, the healer needs to be on point with healing you out of that heal check, because getting heavy attacked while you have a heal check on you from either Grundwolf or the Dire Maw is not fun. When the Dire Maw comes up, that is the priority for the DPS. It needs to go down as quickly as possible. Of course, while that's going on, we can get tethers, or we can get the bat phase, so the DPS being on point with making sure they resummon that ball, nuking down the Horver, and everyone making sure they heal everyone else out of the heal check. That all needs to happen. So like I said, there's a lot going on in this fight. I want to point out a couple other things about the Dire Maws. They come out at 70%, 50%, 35%, 20%, and 10%. The most important percentages that they come out are that 70%, the 50%, the 20%, and the 10%, because those all coincide with the box mechanic. And when you have both a Dire Maw and a box mechanic, you as the tank are going to need to take care of both of those things. I also want to make another note about the tether mechanic. When you get the first tether, it's only on one person, and only one person is going to need to go stack on the spike that is coming out of. However, as the fight progresses, you're going to get a second tether, and then a third tether, and then a fourth tether. So by the end, everybody, including you as the tank, are going to have to go stack on the tether. Of course, with every tether comes more adds, so there's going to be a lot of small coagulants that come up throughout the fight as you get more tethers. So right now you can see there's two, and they're spawning coagulants. As the tank, it's not crucial that you go stack on your spike, because you can usually heal or be healed through that tether mechanic if you're not stacking there, so sometimes you're going to want to position yourself so that the DPS can still keep up damage during that phase on the boss. The only mechanic remaining that we haven't discussed yet is when the dragon puts those fire circles on the ground that you can see now. He tends to put them around wherever Grundwolf is, so if you can position Grundwolf away from where the Hemo Healet needs to be summoned, that's going to be best, as the fire on the ground will get in the way of that important mechanic. However, sometimes it's unavoidable as you're trying to do your best to position everything in that area to nuke everything down. So again, if that happens, the summoner will just have to wait until the fire goes away to summon that ball. Now that we've talked about all of the individual mechanics that you need to worry about, I want to go over why this fight is so difficult. First, Grundwolf has over 15 million health, so it's a very long fight. Next, everybody has a very specific role, and they need to execute that role pretty much flawlessly throughout the entire time, because if they don't, there's too much going on and you're going to get overwhelmed easily. Third, the fight gets significantly harder as time goes on, because we're going to keep getting more and more adds, because we're going to get that tether mechanic, and that tether mechanic is going to increase in number throughout the entire fight, spawning more of those coagulants. Not only that, but it's really hard to keep heals up on everybody when you have 4 tethers near the end of the fight, because everyone's going to be so spread out. So here there's 3 tethers, and you can see it's difficult for the healer to heal everybody because they're spread out, and there's adds everywhere. So for the tank, it's very important to be able to crowd control things when possible, and apply taunt to as many things as you possibly can. Your team being able to control the adds throughout the entire fight is crucial to the success of this hard mode. Which brings me to my next point, gearing. As the tank, there is one set that I recommend above any other set. I've done this hard mode probably a dozen times at this point, and for this final run, I realized that Arkasis, by far, is the best set to bring into here. Arkasis, if you're not familiar with it, every time you pop a potion, it's going to give 3 members of your group and yourself over 40 ultimates. This is insane because in this fight, you're going to have that bat mechanic every 45 seconds or so. And that's the best time to nuke down the Horver, any homunculi, and any other adds that are up. So pretty much every time that phase happens, if you are giving your team ultimate all the time with Arkasis, you're going to be able to nuke those things down very rapidly and not have to worry about it. So this run, the success of this run, is very much attributed to that set. As we get into execute in the video here, I do want to review two more things. First, your champion point distribution as the tank, and then second, your bar setup. So as far as champion point distribution goes, there's a lot of direct damage here, and there's a ton of physical damage here. So I do recommend a lot into Ironclad and a lot into Hardy. There is the damage over time on this fight that gets put on you that you can purge off. However, if you do have a lot into Thick Skin, that will make it so you don't necessarily need to purge right away, as it won't put you in crisis mode as quickly. Quick recovery is also huge to dump a lot of points into, because you are going to be the one hitting the box out of the way. So your healers and anybody else running a heal is going to love it if you have a lot into quick recovery, because you'll get out of that heal check very rapidly. And of course, we don't want to entirely neglect Elemental Defender, but you don't need as much into it. That's just for the fire that is on the ground. Last, let's talk about a general bar setup for a tank, no matter what class you are. On the front bar, I recommend the staples such as your tank level self-heal, your taunt, and your source of mage resolve. But I also recommend having a purge on that front bar as well, because that dot that gets put on you by Grundwolf is probably going to kill you if you can't purge it off easily. And then last, I recommend some type of damage mitigation skill, whether that be something like the Ghost for the Necro, that mitigates damage by 10%, a damage shield that other classes may have access to, or, at the very least, a source of minor maim, so you can reduce incoming damage from anything that you hit with that minor maim. On the back bar, and this is my preference, you may decide to do otherwise, I like to have a self-heal on my back bar as well, but I also run Blood Altar as a nice synergy for the group, because this fight is pretty spread out, especially with those tethers, so having access to that synergy burst heal is going to be really helpful for group survivability. Obviously, a ranged taunt is always a good idea, Wall of Elements to constantly apply your enchant, and then crowd control. A crowd control skill is crucial for this fight, so I use the Necro Fear Totem. There are ads all over the place, and they only get worse as the fight goes on. So being able to crowd control them and prevent them from doing stuff as they get nuked down is vital to this fight. So that's what I have for bar setup. While you're enjoying the craziness that is the last 7% of this fight, I want to thank you for watching my video on how to tank Moongrave Fane Hard Mode. If you like what you saw, please like the video, leave a comment, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Irreverent Aegis, for more videos on tanking in ESO.
I failed you, old friend. You deserved